Hey everyone, Privia here, third year medical student, and I think it's finally time to start talking about what's been going on.
Let's turn to the situation in the United States, the epicenter in the world, now with more cases globally than anywhere else.
Canceling the rest of its entire season.
Best case scenario of 100,000 people losing their lives.
Over the past few weeks, we've seen COVID-19 spread around the globe.
But this is going to be a very painful, very painful 2 weeks.
Today, as in the day I'm filming this, it is Tuesday, March 31st. To be honest, it's still hard to wrap my head around everything that's been going on. Today is day 16 since the time that we were pulled out of all of our clinical rotations at the hospital. And it's not just UBC. Right now, most of the medical schools, if not all in Canada, have done that. Many in the United States, many in Europe as well. The pandemic has become so bad that in parts of Europe, they've actually had to call back medical students to go back into the hospitals. We're lucky that here in Canada, we haven't reached that point yet, and hopefully we won't reach that point. I'm hoping that together as a community, we can do our parts to help control what's going on. So over 2 weeks ago, we were informed that we would be pulled from our clinical rotations. The pandemic had gotten to a point where student safety was of concern. In addition to that, this is not anything that was brought out from the faculty as a reason for pulling us out, but I believe that as medical students, we were not essential people in the hospital. Yes, we do help to make the hospital run better. We do make it easier for the other physicians and the system as a whole by doing a lot of the work that needs to be done, but we're not essential there. And anyone that is not essential is just essentially a sitting duck for transmission. So not only was it for our safety and liability, because we are medical students at the end of the day, we're not medical professionals yet, we don't have a college overseeing our work or our duties. But I think it is better for the community as well for us to not be there and be another source of transmission of COVID. Initially, when we were pulled, all we were told is that it was going to happen for 2 weeks. We did not know how long it was going to last for beyond that. But as of last week, we were officially informed that we would not be going back to the hospital until at least the beginning of July. It's a scary time for a lot of people, and that includes medical students. We are a group of people who like to be very informed. We like to know what's happening. We like reassurance, and this situation of a lot of unknowns is scary for people. Not only just for us in terms of medical students, for everyone. There's businesses that are closing, there's people who've lost their jobs, and no one knows how long this is going to last. Yes, we are concerned about what's going on and we don't like uncertainty, but I'm sure there's no one out there who really enjoys uncertainty, especially when their livelihood is on the line and especially when there's no foreseeable end to this right now. A lot of students are very concerned, and rightfully so. But if you are one of those people who are concerned, who's unsure about when we're going to be going back, who's unsure about how this will affect the CARMS match into residency, if you're wondering if you're going to graduate on time or if you're going to start clerkship on time, or even if you're a student who's hoping to get into medical school and your interviews were canceled or you don't know if you're going to be accepted and you're worried about that, all I can say is try to have some perspective. At the end of the day, this is affecting the world. It's affecting everybody in such extremes that us as medical students, we're only a small, very small part of that. Worst case scenario is that we don't start clerkship on time, is that you may be entering medical school a year later. And I think at the very worst case scenario for someone in my position is that I may graduate late or maybe the next year, which I don't think will happen. I'm just saying I've thought about the worst case scenarios, but in the big picture, is that a worst case scenario if I'm still healthy, if I'm still alive, if I'm helping the community by preventing transmission to other people who are less healthy, who are more vulnerable? I don't think that's actually a worst case scenario. So if you're stressed out about this time, if you're worried, if you don't think you're doing enough, the only advice I can give, which is something that I've been trying to do, is to have some perspective and to really see what the impact is on a wider scale. This isn't the first time something like this has happened. For me though, this is the first time something like this, and for many of you, is happening in our lifetime right now. I think I'm in a really unique spot though, because it's really odd being a part of the medical community. And it's weird because on one hand, I see many medical students, for instance, making posts about social distancing, or what they're calling now physical distancing. How physical distancing can lead to flattening the curve, how it can lead to lower disease transmission. But then on the other hand, these same students are making posts about going out with their friends, going out hiking, having beers together on the beach, going for bike rides, things like that. And it's clear that they don't live in the same house. It's clear that they're friends. And it doesn't matter if I'm sitting 6 feet away from someone. It's the fact that these are things that are not essential right now. And the biggest part why this was really frustrating for me was that a lot of people look up to us as leaders in the community. And if someone who is not in the medical field saw that I was out with my friends, even though I was keeping a few feet apart, they're not going to take it seriously because I'm not taking it seriously. If I'm posting about going out with friends and hanging out with them, it makes it okay for other people as well. And not only are you a leader in the medical community, but you are a leader in the community. We are going to be put on a pedestal of some sort by someone, whether or not you want it or not. At least for me, I would never want to be in a situation where someone saw what I was doing and thought it was okay, and they somehow transmitted this disease to someone else who became very sick. Fortunately, over the past week or so, I think people are starting to take this more seriously. I'm not seeing the same posts that I was before about people going out or clinking drinks together with a hashtag of social distancing, almost mocking everything that's going on. Well, I guess either that or people are just blocking me from their social media, which is also okay. There are a lot of people who are doing very good things for the community right now. Together, we work as a community to get through this, and that's what's happening right now. Unfortunately, though, there are people who are very opportunistic when it comes to things like this. There are some people who are taking advantage of this pandemic as a CV building experience. So I just came across a quote in the book that I'm reading, and it was very applicable to what's going on right now. If one's motives are wrong, nothing can be right. As long as you are serving others, you do the job well. When you are concerned with only helping yourself, you do it less well. A law as inexorable as gravity. If there's confusion or commotion following what you're doing, I think it's a really good indication that you need to look deep inside to figure out what your true intentions are and why you're doing what you're doing. As this quote mentions, if you're doing something for the sole purpose of serving others, then you will do it well. It's when you're doing it for other motives that the truth starts to come out and people will start to question what you're doing. I just hope people keep that in mind during a time like this. I've spoken to many people who feel very uncomfortable, who feel like they're doing nothing right now, sitting at home, not in any clinical duties, who aren't working. There's many people who want to be learning right now, who want to be in the hospital because they signed up to be a physician one day. They want to help people. They want to learn what it's like on the front lines, and they want to be able to prepare for when they are one day going to be a physician. But in my opinion, these things come from a place of ego. And I think it's really important to remember who we are right now and what our place is in this pandemic. I came across another quote the other day, and to be honest, I don't remember where it was from. It could have been from one of the public health officers, it could have been from someone in government, it could have been from a book I'm reading. It's not what you signed up for, but it's what you're here for. Did we go through everything we went through, all the hardships to enter medical school, to be sitting at home while there's a pandemic like this going on? No, we didn't. For us, we're non-essential workers in the hospital, as I mentioned previously. We're just sitting vectors for disease transmission. And in my opinion, our most useful place is actually at home, although many people would argue with that. Physicians give so much to mentor us as students. I've talked about this in one of my previous videos, but as medical students and residents, we either don't get paid or we get paid very little in exchange for the mentorship and the learning that we get from physicians. That takes a lot of work though, and as medical students, we're not licensed to actually make decisions or to practice medicine as residents are. So for us, We really do rely on that mentorship from physicians. And yes, we can be in the hospital right now writing notes, checking in on patients, things like that, but all of that work needs to be checked by somebody. And to me, it's a greater burden to have us there. The physicians on the front lines right now, they have so much on their shoulders. There's a high rate of burnout, people are getting sick, people are unable to see their families, and to have a medical student following them around or having to check on a medical student's work, make sure they're okay and safe, it's just an added burden that I don't think the healthcare system needs right now based on where we are in this pandemic. If you want to help in your community, which is an option, I want to remind all of you to be safe. We've reached a time right now where COVID is being transmitted through the community. This is happening at home where we are. And we're at a point now where if we leave our house, we're risking contracting COVID as well. We must assume that the people around us, the people out in the community, are COVID patients, and this is the only way to be safe. We've all heard of asymptomatic transmission, and what that means is that a patient may not have symptoms. Someone like me, I'm not sick, I don't have a fever, I don't have a cough, but I could still have it and transmit it to someone without me knowing or without them knowing. And this is why the advice from public health and from the government is to stay at home. Limit your risk of exposure. If you need to go out only for essentials. To go out and volunteer and assume that no one around you is asymptomatic or that you have zero risk at contracting this is naive at best, but dangerous at worst. And as community members, we must do our part to limit the spread of this disease. If you are going out into the community and helping, which is not a bad thing, it's important that you take the right precautions. It's important that you stay at home when you can and that you're not going out, you're not visiting family, you're not visiting your grandparents in your free time. If you are doing that and exposing yourself, you also need to take the right steps to ensure that you're not possibly spreading anything to the people around you. Not everyone can do this. Not everyone lives in an environment where they have a house to go to with just a few people at home. Not everyone has a job where they can work from home. So there's people in our community who don't have the privilege to be able to stay at home and to physically distance themselves. So if you are someone who can, it's important to take on that responsibility and do your part in lifting up the entire community. For example, even in my culture, it's very common for grandparents to live at home with an entire family. It's common for there to be 3 generations in a household with up to 10 people living in a house. And it is situations like this which just increase the risk of this being passed around. So if you're going out and doing things in the community, make sure that you're in a situation that won't cause further disease burden. As of today, there are 840,000 cases worldwide. There have been over 41,000 deaths globally. And in Canada, there have been over 8,000 cases. This isn't nearing the end yet. This is just the beginning of what is going to be happening. The actions that we take each and every day will have an impact on our community. If you're worried about not doing enough, then staying at home and physical distancing, if you have the luxury to do so, because it is a luxury, that's doing so much more for not only yourself, but for our community. The most important thing is for you to do your part. We're all in this together.